Hey, everybody, how are you doing? Probably not going to do so great when you learn about one of the largest, if not the largest, breaches that probably affected you, as it affected UK, US, and Canadian citizens with 2.9 billion records. One of the largest, if not the largest, breach of customer data. It's kind of shocking how bad this actually went. We're going to be talking about the tools that you can do to discover if your information has been leaked, what you can do if your information has been leaked, what you can do to prevent your information from further leaks, which have actually been apparently successful for me because I didn't find my information in there. And we're going to be talking about what the governments can actually do to prevent issues like this in the future, because there is some policy changes that can actually happen to help us all better. I was going to talk about this a little bit earlier, but after DEF CON, I felt a little bit under the weather. Don't worry. Don't have COVID, apparently. Thus far, I've tested negative there. But I was under the weather, so I didn't get to make any content. Plus, my Linux workstation went out of commission because I was doing a BIOS update for the sync close issue. And, yeah, apparently Windows booted up on the Linux workstation from the partition I had and then was on long enough to do an update and then killed the Linux bootloader, so it was easier to back up everything and then reinstall Linux. But I did some upgrades, which I'll be talking about in another video, where I run mostly Flatpaks now rather than native Debian installations on Pop! OS. But that's for another video. Anyway, so we have 2.9 billion records that were released by a company called National Public Data. So what are they? Basically, there's a lot of these different sites that buy and sell your information, to do background checks, like been verified, things like that. And on the surface, these sound like really great services, but what they're doing is they're buying a lot of information from you. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize as well is that U.S. governments are getting in on the action as well at the state level and potentially local level, because a lot of people don't know that the DMVs and BMVs, Department of Motor Vehicles and Bureau of Motor Vehicles, actually buy and sell your information. Well, they not buy, but they sell your information so that they can make a buck on this information as well. And then all these data brokers and such are selling and buying information from each other too to aggregate all this data. That's how they have all these records on you, even if you're not really aware and never touch these sites themselves. So when you do a background check with some of your companies, if you pay attention, they may sell your information. So 2.9 billion records were made public on the darknet. And this, to be clear, there's a common misconception that it's just social security numbers. No, that includes, according to this, let me make sure I got this right, this includes name, date of birth, address, phone number, and social security number of information. Now, there is a tool that someone has released to be able to look up if your information is there. You'll have to put your name, your birth date, and your state that you're actually in, so it looks like it's targeted more towards the U.S. customers. I'll link that below in the description for anyone that wants to use that tool, so you can check yourself to see if your information is leaked. That is one way that you can at least check your information. There's probably going to be some more tools out there, but it's a lot of data that they have. So you can manually go parse that data if you want, but it's going to be a little bit time-consuming if you do want to check that data. And on top of that, once you find your information, what I would recommend you do, even if your information wasn't already leaked, go to the credit bureaus. That's TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Yeah, that company that got breached a while ago. I know. And you're going to want to freeze your credit. Now, it's important to know that when you freeze your credit, people can't make inquiries unless you unfreeze or at least thaw your credit. This is beautiful, where you can go in and you can schedule a thaw. So if you're going to buy a house, apply for credit of any kind, you can schedule a thaw so they can do a lookup on your things. I recommend everyone do that whether or not you've been breached. It's a great thing to do. Of course, make sure that you store your password somewhere securely for all those things. I, of course, recommend Proton Pass. That's one of the password managers I, of course, absolutely love. I am affiliated with them, just so you're aware, but they do have a free version as well. So you can also use Bitwarden, too, just to get that out there. Bitwarden is another one that I like, which they have free plans, things like that. Not affiliated with them. They're a great product, too. There's also KeePass XC. We'll get into the password management in another video later on in the future, because there's some tools that I like, don't like, and we'll get into that later. That's not what this video is about. The other thing that you can do is, well, that's really all you can do, is freeze your credit if you've been leaked. That's about it. Your information's out there. You're kind of boned. Now, if your information does get repeatedly stolen, you can go to the Social Security Administration and apply potentially for a new Social Security number, but it is an uphill battle to get a new Social Security number. You have to prove that your identity is continuously being stolen and repeatedly being stolen, but it is possible. you may be in for a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy to get that, but just know that is a potential option out there. I haven't heard of many people getting that done successfully, but it is a possibility that you can do. Now, as far as protecting your information, apparently people that were using data opt-out tools were not affected. Those include people like me that have been using Delete Me for years, which I'm going to put a link down in the bio for that, as well as Proton Pass and everything else. Because I couldn't find my information in there. And I looked up several of my friends and stuff that were using these tools with their permission, make that clear. Couldn't find their information. So it is good to know that these data opt-out tools are in fact working. So definitely can vouch for Delete Me at this point. It's been saving my butt from a lot of these breaches. My information hasn't been leaked in a lot of these different things, as well as there's the whole idea of account hygiene that I follow through, where I actually look through my Proton Pass and Bitwardens and I actually check, hey, when was the last time I used this account? And I'll actually log in and delete those accounts and request deletion and things like that. Because if I haven't used that account in several years, I probably don't need it anymore. That's one thing I think a lot of people don't do, as well as make sure that you do not use the same password on all of your accounts, because now that they have more information, it's going to be easier to password spray, things like that. So if your information has already been leaked, you can always, check have I been pwned with your email and phone number. There's also another site that I will put in the description as well, besides have I been pwned, that works a little bit better to check out phone numbers. And you can see if that information has been leaked, so that way you can at least stay on top of things. And you can set up alerts with have I been pwned and stuff if your information has been breached. Plus Proton Pass and Bitwarden, they do have the ability to alert you for breaches of your information. This is why you should have different passwords for every account. But also, Proton Pass has the ability that you can anonymize your emails. We'll get into that later on in another piece of content, where you can have a different email account aliased for every different account. It's really great. I love their approach to things, because not just a different password and a different username potentially, but now you have different emails to actually go through, because some tools require you to do that. Now, as far as government policies and things like that, Department of Motor Vehicles, Bureau of Motor Vehicles do sell your information to make an extra buck off of you. There is no inherent right to privacy in the United States of America. That is a common misconception. The government does not have the ability to search and seize, but companies are at their are free to do whatever they please when you sign over your data. So one thing that we definitely need to get done in the United States is get GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, equivalencies like they have in the EU that can protect our data and allow us to opt out of data. Now, luckily, if you're in California, you have the CCPA, what is that, California Consumer Protection Act, I believe, which allows you to actually request your data to be removed from a lot of these companies, and is very similar to the GDPR. We need that nationwide. Your information should not be up for grabs so that you're basically running butt naked in a cornfield backwards. It's a very painful experience. There's a lot of alcohol involved in that story. We're not going to talk about that. But anyway, you got to be vigilant with a lot of these different things. You can't just be lackadaisical and lazy about, my information is out there. There's nothing I can do about it. There are things you can do to prevent your information being out there, and when it is out there, to prevent it further. So unfortunately, if your information's out there, not much you can do except freeze your credit. Maybe look into some data opt-out services. So as this happens more and more over time, it's going to be happening more and more. Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that don't take their security seriously until it's a little too late. There is a class action lawsuit, I know, against National Public Data, but at least with all this information, you can be armed so that you can know what to do if you have been affected, find your information if you've been affected, as well as what you can do in the future to prevent this from happening, and how you should start lobbying your Congress, whether it's at the state or federal level, do both, to get some proper data protections in our government, because they don't care about us. They really don't. They're going to sell our information to the highest bidder when it comes to these companies. And, well, not even the highest bidder. They'll just say, hey, you want your information? A few pennies on the dollar. Seriously, it's kind of shocking when you see how little you are cost in terms of selling your data to other companies. And there's hundreds of these data brokers out there just selling your information. So opt out of all those things. Delete Me does have free guides if you want to do it on a DIY basis, but their automated service works really, really well. Of course, like I said, password management, make sure you have different credentials for everything as well, and freeze your credit. Those are the big things that you can do right now. Anyway, stay safe out there. The internet can be a scary place. See y'all later.